You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, etc. RIP, the film magazine. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who would get canceled if I did anything referencing the film that I made. So I'm just going to say I am the middle class bourgeois person who is not going to defy norms.
No, of course not. I'm Sam. I'm the one who's been driven mad by acorns hitting my roof.
I forgot about that, yeah. I am Kieran. I'm the one who, for one reason or another, is probably go to hell.
Nice. None of us are named Jack, unfortunately. There's also no weapons named after our names, unless there's like Sam Saw or something I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. We'll have to look it up. Are there any weapons named after us? Not after us specifically.
Just us. So before we get into Lars von... Is it Trier or Trier? I've always said Trier. Okay.
I said Trier, yeah.
Cool. Just making sure I'm not dumb because he is not American, so I don't know how to pronounce his name. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about Oscars predictions because Sam informed Kieran and I that that's coming up this week. So thank you for being our resident new movie guy, Sam.
Somebody's got to.
I guess let's start with, we want to kind of go over the main categories, but real quick, I also want to shout out film editing, Anora the Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, and Wicked. Any thoughts there, guys?
Hang on, let me go down.
I genuinely think the Brutalist should probably win in every category it's been nominated since.
It's like I don't think it's going to completely do like an Oppenheimer, but it's not far off doing an Oppenheimer. Again, I haven't seen it purely because my ability to go see it has been severely reduced for transport reasons. But from what I can work out, probably because even the AI stuff doesn't seem to have damaged it in any way, which is mildly surprising. Although I think the Oscars were saying that they might in future put a thing that that any submissions have to declare what AI editing has been used.
We'll do another episode on AI in film because that's such a
the Brutalist Late
topic.
Night with the Devil and something else.
But yeah, I don't have a strong feeling here. It's probably gonna go to something like whichever of Amelia Perez or Conclave doesn't work out elsewhere. That could be a spot where they get it. Who knows?
I mean, Conclave has been doing surprisingly well in a lot of these award shows, but I still not Oscars. I don't think. I think it will.
I mean, it wasn't a surprise that the BAFTAs gave it to them because it's
homegrown talent and all that.
Yeah. So it's the kind of thing they would do. It's not big and in your face. It's very kind of inclusive. Although actually, considering it's in Britain and it's a Catholic film, that bit is surprising, considering the history. But that bit wasn't shocking.
Bloody Mary's clapping from her grave.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing. If we go into actor.
Well, before that, real quick, I singled out this and editing because they're the foundational film aspects, but cinematography is The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu, and I'm hoping for Nosferatu's Yaron Blaschke.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't know why
it's either The Brutalist or it's either The Brutalist or Nosferatu.
Then it would be Dune Part 2, then Amelia Perez, and then Maria. I've seen Maria. I don't know why it's in here. Cinematography was not something I was picking up on for that film. Realistically, if there was going to be anything, it would have been Jolie getting a actress nom, which she didn't. If I was going to do anything.
With the cinematography, because Dune Part 2 was Greg Fraser, isn't it? And I'll be interested to see if he becomes like the new Roger Deakins, always the bridesmaid of the bride, who gets 20 nominations over.
I'll do something that's an art film and not like a blockbuster, and he'll actually get a win.
the cool thing about The Brutalist is it does create that epic scale for like such a small story with the cinematography. So I mean, cool. Otherwise, whatever. So sorry, we can go to actor now.
Yeah, let's go through the main ones. I mean, as I was going to say, so actor in the leading role, Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for Apprentice. I mean, we know that Adrian Brody's got it. There's no reason even discussing the damn thing.
It's Adrian Brody, yeah.
But let's be honest, out of those 5, if Adrian Brody wasn't there, Ralph Fiennes would be a shoo-in, which is just the thing, that there's so many things that you go, if The Brutalist wasn't there getting all the attention... There's so many other things that would grab it, you know.
I mean, I'm gonna go against the grain and guess they give it to Chalamet, and that's not based off like how things have been going this award season or anything. Just you know,
is it just because he's playing a famous person in a big music?
It could be. He's so hot right now. Also, like he's really good. He's really good at it, and I hate that movie.
Is he the only reason to go and see the movie?
Yeah, pretty much.
Fair enough.
Yes. Actress in
and
a leading role.
It also once again proves that you at least have to have one kind of music biopic getting nommed to something every year now. Yeah. This is the tradition.
True.
It's true.
Actress in... Oh, sorry.
No, because actress will be interesting because Micah Madsen's got quite a bit of momentum. She's won in quite a few other areas. But I'm going to call Demi Moore on this for the narrative. Oscars like a kind of a long kind of overdue kind of recognition of a established star. I think. Yeah,
like my opinion swings depending on the day. I mean, I want Demi Moore to get it because The Substance is an absolutely astonishing film. But I mean, I saw the trailer for Anora and went, "There's your Oscar winner." For actress, I still haven't seen the film because the film hasn't been out when I've been to see it.
She is a force of nature in it, definitely, and it'll be thoroughly deserved if she does win.
And it's not just my Scream fandom. But then Demi Moore started getting them, so she was it Golden Globe she got, and then some of the SAG-AFTRA stuff, and I'm like, okay, maybe Demi Moore can get it. But then BAFTA gave it to Madison, and then I'm like, okay, and they normally it's not completely the same with the Oscars and the BAFTAs, but it's normally like a good 70-75% chance. It's a reasonable bet. So now I'm going...
We've covered the 2 big ones there, by the way, but all of them, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez. Oh, that's not looking good.
I will see that.
Which has everything to do with her persona, by the way, and her tweets.
Yes.
I'm fairly sure though I'm going to watch it and go, why was this nominated aside from the story? And we've said this with things like what was it Crash that we did that essentially was an average movie at best but won stuff because we're addressing racism.
Green Book a few years ago as well. It's in that kind of mold. Although I would say Amelia Perez is a much better film than Crash or Green Book. Or it's at least more interesting than either of those two. But it's just not up there with the rest of the pack, I don't think.
And also Fernanda Torres with I'm Still Here, the final nominee. I haven't seen that, but it's still there.
No.
So, I'll say I'm rooting for Demi Moore, but I still need to see Amelia Perez too, but. If we're going to talk about the film with the most to say about where we are in the world and all that, going back to The Brutalist, it's The Brutalist in the context of American film, at least.
I mean, just looking at actor and supporting, because it's still actor still fairly major. In the nicest way to Kieran Culkin, I can understand why he's got the nom. I wouldn't have said coming out of it he's going to get an Oscar nom.
No.
And actually the same for the screenplay, because Jesse Eisenberg won the BAFTA for the screenplay. And I'm like, I know why they've done it, but I would never have done it.
And I've still not seen A Real Pain, but just judged from the momentum, I think this is Kieran Culkin's to lose because he's just won everything so far in the season.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, and then
I didn't see The Apprentice. I don't plan on it. I don't think Ed Norton is anything special in A Complete Unknown. I don't know why he's here.
because they've got to nominate someone.
Jeremy Strong is very good in The Apprentice. I mean, it's like to make to sort of like someone more monstrous than Trump in your film, is quite something. And
And you're a Borisov in Anora. I don't know if he's the boyfriend or if he's the bodyguard guy who's nice, but
he's the nice bodyguard. He's the bald,
the nice bodyguard is good, and I know he's also a popular actress in Europe, so that'd be cool. But
then for actress and supporting role, Monica Barbara for Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, and Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. Which I mean, with Emilia Perez isn't going to get it, although she's actually apparently like one of the better things in that film. But I will say
the least
that
problematic actress nominated.
Again,
just being a popcorn queen, it's nice to see her get nommed for something of credit.
But also, again, one of the time-honoured instances of category fraud. I'm sorry, there's no two ways about it. Zoe Saldana is the lead in Emilia Perez. She's not the task character, but she is the lead. She's got the most screen time, the most to do. It's her story essentially. It's how she deals with the situation she's drawn into.
So you're saying it's like a reverse of Anthony Hopkins going for lead actor in Silence of the Lambs?
Kind of, yeah. And I think Felicity Jones is great in The Brutalist, especially considering she only comes in like the second half, but she really makes her screen time.
The second half is a full feature-length film, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it is 3 hours long, isn't it? The Brutalist.
The 3.5.
I'm going to call it. I'm going to say Ariana Grande for this, because I think she absolutely runs away with Wicked.
I can see that, yeah.
Every scene, and I think it kind of proves to people everyone knows she's like a star. She's got charisma, she's a great performer, but she's got great comic timing as well. She can really do like the kind of slightly exaggerated kind of comic kind of acting style. So that's a nice change.
Yeah. Right. Let's run through the others. Yeah. We are doing a Lars von Trier episode, but obviously it's coming up.
Before Best Picture, directing Anora, Sean Baker, The Brutalist, Brady Corbett, Complete Unknown, James Mangold, Emilia Perez, Jacques Audiard, and I forget how to say the Substance Lady, but her, please give us a woman.
Coralie Faget.
Yeah. It won't be, because that's how it goes. But
I think this is it's probably Brady Corbett's to lose, but I think if they don't go for him, I think it's between him and Sean Baker. I think it's one or the other. Yeah. Sean Baker got it at the SAG Awards, didn't he? He got Best Director. So that's sometimes a good indicator of some of the surprises in store for the Oscars.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
let's quickly do the writing before we go to Best Picture.
Oh yeah. I'm going to call another one for The Substance. I think that's got a good chance to get original screenplay.
I would say that as well, but it's up against A Real Pain.
I'm guessing it's
which got the BAFTA.
I'm guessing it's whatever doesn't win Best Picture as a consolation prize. Here's your second place.
Because it's a bit like how what was it called? Promising Young Woman the other year got a surprise original screenplay Oscar, and that was like the slightly edgy kind of genre film on the outskirts. So it could be something similar to that. And again, the themes it kind of digs into this year, I think it could make the difference.
I mean, it should be, but I think A Real Pain will get it. Why? Because it's Jewish and Holocaust based. Which that's always going to go, oh look, we're addressing modern topics and that kind of thing, and that always gets you about halfway over the line at the awards. So you just have to pick a topic that the Oscars like, and half your work is done for you.
If you're going to do a Holocaust,
have a small budget.
If you're going to do I presume The Brutalist is nominated for screenplay as well.
Original, I think. In original.
Yeah, because if you're going to go for a Holocaust trauma film, The Brutalist will get it over Real Pain.
Yeah, so original, you've got Anora, Brutalist, Real Pain, September 5 or 5th, and The Substance. September 5th is not going to get it. We know this.
No.
I would say it's probably between. Actually, I think it's between a real pain is the in first place, and then probably Honora, Brutalist, and Substance are kind of jockeying for second position.
Yeah.
With September 5th, everyone's going in the nicest way. Why is September 5th here?
Adapted screenplay: A Complete Unknown, Boo, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. And I mean, this could be another really good movie consolation prize thing.
Yeah. This could be the one thing. It's probably the best chance for Conclave this category. I think.
I would say that. One thing I do want to say that I still don't know how Substance didn't get sound nom. I still don't understand that.
Because the Academy is full of technical dum-dums.
Like I've said to you, and like I came out of the Substance, and the first thing I did is I went onto Blue Sky or whatever it was at the time, and I literally just went, Substance has got the Oscar for sound now. Like just give it to them. That's before I kind of seen it again or even re-saw clips kind of months later. That's the thing I had in my head. I remembered going, the sound was amazing. But I don't know how it's got that. Anyway, let's quickly finish off. Best Picture. So Honora, The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, Substance, Wicked. Yes, Dune Part 2 is in there, everybody. Stop complaining Villeneuve didn't get a nom because he's still down as a producer and you can only have 5 for directing, and 10 for picture.
Well, Complete Unknown is there, and for that I am very displeased.
Yeah.
Confused.
So I've only seen 7 of the 10 this year. I usually try and see as many as possible, but I think it's most because I'm Still Here has only just come out of here, and I missed Complete Unknown.
It's just there.
Well, the thing was, I could have gone to see A Complete Unknown, and I went, I can't really be bothered because it's. I think also this was before kind of all the buzz and everything started, and I was like, well, I remember like people going and being incredibly indifferent to the Bob Marley one at the beginning of last year. So I'm like, they've shoved it out in January. Like, yes, Timothée Chalamet's in there, but that's about it. I can't really do it. And then it's just like, he's getting nommed for everything under the sun. And I'm like, I should have gone to see it.
If your car had crapped out the day you decided to go see it, that would have been a blessing. It's nothing special. I was meant to go see a
gig that day. But yeah. So, I mean, Best Picture, Brutalist has got it.
But I would be very happy if Honora got it as well. You know that for me, it's those two jostling for my kind of favorite of the.
Brutalist will get it. I think Honora and Conclave are in second. Probably Complete Unknown and Substance are in third. Everything else is kind of very much an outside bet.
I'm rooting for the Substance, but
it won't. The day the Substance wins, I will do something ridiculous on air. I don't know what it is, but I will.
To give you good percentages or good guesses. I'm here to say hope because nothing matters and the Academy's dumb anyway. And whatever happens, people will talk about ceremony,
as we know from Del Toro, not Del Toro, Bong Joon-ho, who has said that his next film after Mickey 17 is going to be an animation. It's an animation.
Yeah, isn't it an animation about deep sea diving or something?
I think so, yeah. It's almost like a family kind of animation, but with probably typical Bong Joon-ho, like a left hook somewhere. It's kind of how it works. But yeah, those are my...
South Korean Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
That'd be weird. But yeah, those are my... Those are my things for the main bits for the Oscars.
So we said before we were going to do 5, but yeah, we hit all the ones that I think are most important to film, certainly.
Those are the big 5.
Well, the big 5 plus the other 4 and 5. We probably did like 10.
Yeah.
Well, you got the big 5, but then you got the ancillary bits.
It's just a big 5: a picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. Well, original screenplay usually.
All right. Lars von Trier, whose real name is not even Von.
Is Lars Trier.
He just took the Von because it sounded cool. I read an article about him from Sense of Cinema, and it talked about how at the beginning of a documentary, Transformer, a portrait of Lars von Trier, he says, "I'll gladly assert everything I've said, or everything said or written about me is a lie."
Wait, do you want to see the image of his box set?
Unsurprising.
So that kind of
That
sums
looks
him up,
like
doesn't
the kind of poster for most of his films.
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
If you want to know Von Trier, I mean, it's through the lens of he's controversial. He said he's done some actually bad things, which I'm
Yeah.
sure we will touch on. But
I listened to an episode of Evolution of Horror, which talks about Antichrist and the house that Jack built, and one of the critics on it they said I think they described him as the biggest troll in the film industry, basically.
yeah,
You know, it's like the reactions from people, critics, audiences are the point. It's like he's a provocateur.
There's the fun controversy, the being a provocateur, and then there's the probably genuinely a bad person stuff. Yeah, which isn't great. But I think what he's probably best known for, aside from any individual film, is he was a founder of the Dogma 95 movement, which in 1995, some Danish dudes went to a festival and handed out a bunch of flyers advertising their set of values, their vow of chastity. And here were the set of rules that they drew up and confirmed. One, shooting must
follow.
Yeah, it didn't follow. Shooting must be done on location. Props and sets must not be brought in. The sound must never be produced apart from the image or vice versa. The camera must be handheld. Any movement or mobility attainable in the hand is permitted. The film must be in color. Special lighting is not acceptable. Optical work and filters are forbidden. The film must not contain superficial action. Temporal and geographical alienations are forbidden. Genre movies are not acceptable. The film format must be Academy 35mm, and the director must not be credited. Furthermore, I swear as a director to refrain from my personal taste. I am no longer an artist. I swear to refrain from creating my work, as I regard the instant as more important than the whole. My supreme goal is to force the truth out of my characters and settings, and I swear to do so by the means available at the cost of any good taste and any aesthetic considerations. And all of this was to obviously break away from traditional Hollywood film style, but even from European art film style. So,
I mean, we can go and break down a load of stuff in there. The one thing I don't like is genre movies are not acceptable. Because I can still hear one of my lecturers from undergrad for creative writing and going, everyone goes, it's broken up into kind of literary fiction and genre fiction. And he's like, literary fiction is a genre. It's just about standing around a kitchen table having a breakup instead of riding on a dragon or on a spaceship. That's the difference. And one's more fun than the other. Shut up. So I'm looking at that going, does he just like, what's this thing of, we can't have like genre movies including horror, and guess which genre he's now most associated with? It's ridiculous. I'm a stickler for that.
If I could quibble a little bit there, I think that literary fiction being a genre probably, and that's in terms of books obviously, but it kind of crosses over to film where you have the art film where it's more about playing
drama.
Yeah, the art film is what I would compare it to, because it's about playing with the form and breaking away from the traditional way that things are done, more so than it's about, the elements of story. Like when I think of fantasy, I think of Brandon Sanderson, and he makes the Marvel movies of books. And when I think of what is literary fiction doing, it's breaking away from the mainstream genre of traditional storytelling and traditional presentation and things like that.
It's also a lot more dull. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess.
I also do like the fact that kind of Trier kind of puts this in and goes, and he's one of the people that kind of espouses it. But the only one that gets kind of close is one that we'll discuss later, which is The Idiots. And even that, he admits he broke one or two of the rules on occasion.
He added music, didn't he? And did a couple of other little things. I mean, but for me, the one I rate, the one I've studied in school as like the kind of case study film for this movement was Festen, aka the Celebration, Thomas Vinterberg's film. Now, I really rate that. I think that's just a really solid, dark family drama. But in that, even the director admitted they broke a couple of rules. As I think he had to block out a window, with some put some paper over a window, so to change the light levels, which technically not allowed in the dogma rules. And there's a weirder bit. I mean, if you haven't seen the film, I won't spoil anything, but there is sort of an implication of possibly something, if not supernatural, some definitely kind of stuff weighing on the psyches of this family who are kind of overcoming like trauma. Basically, it's almost like something from their past is kind of weighing down on them, and if it's not a literal ghost, then it's working like a ghost, basically. But yeah, I mean, so when I think when I studied this, the two that were mentioned most were Feston and the Idiots, and then it kind of all this was kind of drip fed out over the next few years. I was kind of annoyed with it. It's Dogma 95, but their films didn't start coming out until 98.
Well, that's when they wrote it.
Yeah.
Or published it, at least.
The manifesto. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just, I mean, I understand the principle of it, but then there's stuff which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for putting restrictions on yourself to kind of make you kind of exercise your creativity, and kind of everything like that. But yeah, if this point is just, oh, look how clever we are, look what we're doing, it's look at us.
Yeah. And the fact they say it's kind of my supreme goal is to force the truth out of my characters and settings. But if it's fiction, then and that kind of really is ridiculous when there's part that props and sets must not be brought in. If a particular prop is necessary for the story, a location must be chosen where this prop is to be found. Which is just a ridiculous thing, because it's like, I'm trying to force the truth out of my character. I've written this thing, and this is the truth of the character. Oh, well, we can't find anything, therefore we can't do it. So we're going to have to change it. Well, that's not true to your kind of writer's authorial intent.
Yeah,
and then,
it does sound a bit like we want to save some money on costumes, so we'll just get all our cast to come in their own clothes.
Well, I would think rather it then becomes, well, how do I either find locations that have what I need, to be a bit more creative rather than just fit everything into exactly what I need. And the other way around could be also like just having to write differently, having to think up your story in a new way. Like in a sense, it's a list of strictures, but it's also a list of, rules that were obviously being broken. Like for all of the rules, the irony of the term dogma was that it was going against the traditional dogma of how film is made, and just trying to do new things.
Yes, I appreciate the sentiment. I also find it incredibly pretentious, but that's just me.
Yeah. But von Trier had been making movies since the 80s. He was in film school in the early 80s. He made a lot of stuff before he made our first film, The Idiots, including the first film in that trilogy that it's a part of, which is the Golden Heart trilogy, which is Breaking the Waves, and that's about a husband and wife. We'll get to another husband and wife movie. But
yes, we will.
Yes, we will. This one's about a husband and wife where he's paralyzed and he is directing her to engage in certain actions that, obviously lead to tragedy. And Dancer in the Dark, which is the Bjork film. And Bjork has come out and said that von Trier was sexually inappropriate. I've seen the term assault mentioned with it, but not great. That's one that I'm not going to be watching, but apparently it's also really good. It's a musical in this vein of like dark stories. But yeah, I'm probably not going to watch it because of the allegations regarding that. But The Idiots was released. Sam, you mentioned they didn't start releasing their movies until 98, and obviously don't take long to make. You mentioned the first Dogma 95 film. This was Dogma 2. That's how it's introduced in the credits. It has the seal of approval from von Trier and his cohorts. It would be funny if he refused to certify his own film, but that's how The Idiots opens. And then, oh, by the way, I had to watch this on Mubi. That's where it's available in the U.S. That's also where the house that Jack built was. So get on the U.S. Mubi.
I had to pay actual money to rent both of those. I already had Antichrist.
Yeah, get U.S. Movie, really good. Get that, support them. But The Idiots, it starts out in a restaurant, and there's a woman there, and she's concerned about money. She's looking a little lonesome, and then she sees these, who she believes are mentally handicapped people, running around the restaurant and causing mischief. That scene in Seinfeld where they dare George to go blow in somebody's soup. I was expecting that to happen. Like they're touching everybody's stuff, picking their nose and wiping it. And then it turns out she gets in a taxi with those people. It turns out
you do.
Yeah, of course. It turns out they're just pretending to be foolish, mentally handicapped. I'm gonna have to find a lot of ways to not say the word they continually use in the subtitles.
The middle class would be intellectuals.
Yes.
Challenging society's social laws, aren't they, really?
Yes.
By trying to find freedom in essentially breaking rules and pretending to be mentally handicapped.
It's spazzing out. Maybe I can use that. But yeah.
That is the term they use. You may use the term as long as it's not gratuitous.
They live in a commune in this house that the sort of leader, the Manson of the group, if you will, his name is Stauffer, which I really wish in the Anglosphere that we used Stauffer as a short for Christopher. I guess maybe we use Topher, but yeah, we're really missing out on that. But Stauffer's kind of the leader of the gang, the one espousing the sort of dogma behind it. And then, you have the other ones that are just kind of following along, practicing their craft. They're taking notes on it, essentially trying to improve their ability to act mentally handicapped. And yeah, like y'all said, just let go.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yes, bless you.
Thank you.
they trying to let go of their inhibitions and just act crazy. And they do all, we mentioned they're middle class. One is like an art lecturer, and one is an ad agent. One is a doctor. Like they are, otherwise successful and smart people, but they are acting in this manner. And at the beginning, gosh, what's the main lady's name? It's Karen, not Catherine. Karen. Katarina is a different one.
And Karen is one of the least Danish sounding names I've ever heard. It really threw me. So we'll just Karen.
Yep, not very Danish. But Karen, gosh, where was I going with that? Oh, she at first thinks that, they're making fun of mentally handicapped people, and they're like, oh, they are. In a sense, they say we are poking fun at them, but she comes to see the way that they let go and interact with each other is freeing, and begins to do it herself.
The liberation found in just letting go of all your kind of not kind of holding anything back, I suppose. And they're kind of their general theory that we're challenging kind of how society treats generally handicapped people, and we're exposing like the hypocrisies. I mean, there's a great scene where they're because the house they're in, they're basically just squatting in it, aren't they? Is owned by the leader's uncle, is it? I think. And those people come around, he's looking to sell it. That's what he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be house sitting, while it's on the market. And this rich couple come around, look around, and they can basically say, well, yes, it's a great place, but do you know about the asylum down the road?
And they like to come over and use the garden. They continue to do that, and it plays kind of like a Borat scene. I'm sure those people are actors, but it would have been funny if they were just.
They definitely are. The ladies in Feston as well.
They have to, kind of react politely and act like they're nice people, and then they get in the car and drive off and are never seen again. They don't buy the home. My favorite little, acting spastic vignette is they are walking around selling these terrible Christmas ornaments, which there's a prop. I guess maybe there was stuff on site that they constructed it with. I don't know. Or von Trier broke some rules, but they're going house to house trying to sell these items, and a lady opens the door and they say, "Oh yeah, we're selling." I'm not going to do the voice. We're selling these Christmas ornaments. Oh, how much are they? 80 pounds is what the translation says. So I guess someone in the UK did the subtitles in English. But they're like, 80 pounds and 5 pence. And then they land on 2 pounds.
The 5 pence is really important.
They get 2 pounds and 5 pence for it, and then they decide to exploit a richer guy by throwing all the stuff on the ground and then going and saying that one of them tripped on a raised cobblestone outside his home, and that if he doesn't have insurance, they're going to sue him. And he ends up paying for all their broken Christmas ornaments. And
I was going to say that part is very American behavior. You wouldn't have thought of it from a Danish director.
We'll pretend we're injured so we can sue you.
Yeah, exactly. They
have healthcare there, so I don't know. I don't get it.
That's true.
But yeah, we see how these people are finding sneaky ways to get money, but also they like to be sort of malicious in their tricks. It isn't all just fun and games and making people uncomfortable in public.
Yeah, and then when they're not out causing havoc and exposing society's hypocrisies and whatever else they think they're doing, they'll go back and have a nice orgy to unwind at the end of the day.
Yes. By the way,
get onto that later.
before we get to the orgy, there's also these sort of documentary interview segments that are intercut that speak of the events happening in the past tense and sort of relate to a scene that's about to come up. Which, does that violate one of the rules? I think it does.
That's sort of like constructing reality, isn't it? That's
the 7 temporal and geographical alienation are forbidden.
I will say that he eventually did it and made a confession and said, in relation to the production of Dogma 2, The Idiots, I confess to have used a stand-in in only one case, in one case only, the sexual intercourse scene, because it is unsimulated. So you would get pornographic actors in for that. To have organised payment of cash to the actors for shopping of accessories, food, because you're obviously going to need food, and I guess even just to feed your crew as well. To have intervened with the location by moving sources of light, candlelight, to achieve exposure, and have to have been aware of the fact that the production had entered into an agreement of leasing a car without the knowledge of the involved actor. All in all, and apart from the above, I feel to have lived up to the intentions and rules of the Manifesto Dogma 95. And he said, in order to not violate Dogma 95 Rule 2, which is forbidding the use of non-diegetic music, a harmonica player was recorded during the shooting of some scenes, including the end credits, even if he is not seen on screen. So it reminds me a bit of there's the mirror shaving scene in Hitchcock's Murder, where they wanted kind of internal monologue and a radio playing, and so because they hadn't kind of got dubbing, they literally had an entire orchestra off screen to come in and start playing the music that's meant to be on the radio at the same time. And then they kind of had a tape recorder which had his internal thoughts and played that at the same time as well in order to kind of get everything on screen. So it was a very interesting thing to do with that. But yeah, those are the rules he's apparently broken.
Yeah, the temporal one with the intercut documentary segments, you didn't mention it there. I would say that it violates it, but spiritually, I don't think that it's a problem. It's just more of a literal breaking of the rule than it is a sort of intentional one, because I think it does it gives the film a sort of different feel from your average Hollywood film. That's
Rule
a point
7.
where they give insight. That's a point where the characters will say, oh, I thought this about that. I thought this about this person.
Rule 7, temporal and geographical alienation are forbidden, in brackets. That is to say that the film takes place here and now.
Yeah, and it obviously does not. It takes place in the past. You can also see, so it's as if the whole thing is a documentary, because you do see handheld cameramen walking around. You see the boom mic. You see the boom mic shadow. And it's, are these mistakes and they captured the truth of the filmmaking process and they put it in? Or is it intentional and they left it in because, what's actually happening is being diegetically filmed? I'm not fully clear on that. I suppose you could interpret that because they left it in, it is being constructed in universe. The problem is I don't know, because another aspect of that could be, well, we shot it and that is the truth of what happened, so we'll leave it.
There's also probably a kind of unsaid part of that, which is that they can't then use editing trickery in order to kind of mask out anything in the effects.
Yeah.
So they're probably just like, this is what we got. The only thing we can do is pretty much not use the shot. And to go back probably would be to break some other kind of philosophical rule, if not actually there, because then you'd have to make sure the same stuff is there. You'd have to arrange for the same costumes, and that would probably be planning and therefore not genuine to the spirit of the rules that we have created. So they're probably just like, we actually can't do anything with this. Isn't it very convenient that this is meant to be almost like a documentary big shot? How amazing.
And I'll come back to that in a second, because I think what I ultimately think of the film relies on one of those two interpretations. But the orgy happens. There are stunt pornographic actors in there, because, you're not just going to show the genitals of, I mean, they show a lot of their genitals, but not penetratively, I should say.
And this is something he does a few times in his career, doesn't he? Kind of he'll push his actors to the nth degree, and a lot of them are very kind of accommodating, such as it is. Fred's go, to a certain stage, but then obviously, when he needs to say, right, bring the adult film stars in for these few shots.
And it's also not just female nudity. There's a lot of frontal male. So I do appreciate that there's a balance to it, and it's not just, ooh, look at these hot women. No, it's everybody. The nudity's just the truth. And then after the orgy scene,
surely to capture the truth of everything, that nobody should be wearing clothes at all.
Well, I mean, the truth is we are wearing clothes, so I don't know. Well, in that, the orgy scene is set up by, they're throwing a fake birthday party for Stauffer, and they dance to music, and they say, okay, Stauffer, now what do you want to do? And he says, gangbang. And so, they do a gangbang.
Most of them do, yeah.
And then two of them have a very intimate scene while in spastic mode together, which it's very touching and cute. And then
as much as you can do in that,
and then the uncle or father of one of the women shows up, and he says, "You haven't taken your father. You haven't."
I think she's like the youngest of the group, isn't she? I think it's basically implied she ran away from home, and she was on medication. She was some kind of psychological treatment, and she comes to bring her back.
She was the one with the love scene with Jeppe or whatever, which I'm hoping is Danish for Jeff. But the dad's taking her off in the car, and Jeppe goes and jumps onto the hood, and he's refusing to go away, and the whole time they're in spastic mode. So
my main thought about that scene was there would be no safety regulation at all for this, and that could have so easily gone so wrong.
It's true. I'm sure the driver actor was trying to be conscious of that, because it would ultimately be on
speed ahead,
because he's properly hurling himself at the screen, isn't he? And almost, when it comes jerks forward, almost going under a few times.
But it's a heartbreaking scene. Like, it's so well acted. I think that Jeppe, just the way his raw emotion comes through is amazing in that scene.
I think the whole ensemble are amazing. They're really, really good. especially the kind of the stuff that they're having to do, because like the multiple layers. Obviously, they're playing like they're middle class, very privileged characters with their kind of political ideology and kind of aims in life, and then obviously they play those moments of liberation and moments of making other people feel uncomfortable. But then there's these moments of real kind of gut punch kind of pathos as well, which are really well played, I think.
Yeah, and then Stauffer wants them to live like this in their daily life, to fully embrace being idiots, and so they play spin the bottle to see who's going to have to do that, and none of them are willing. And so finally, Karen, she decides that she will do it. She will go home to her real life and become spastic around her family. And this is the other most heartbreaking part. We find out that she lost her son, and she's been missing for 2 weeks. Her family's been worried about her. She calls her husband towards the beginning, but I didn't think about that again until I heard his name here. And she didn't go to the funeral. She left the day before it. And so they all sit down to have coffee and cake. And Suzanne, who has in some scenes acted as the sort of handler for the idiots, she's there to observe and watch Karen spaz in front of her family. And Karen puts cake in her mouth and begins to drool it out, and they're all sitting around the table and watching her, and her husband gets up and slaps the crap out of her. And it's so sad. And it, like, I on his end, I understand your wife disappeared in like the toughest moment of your life. You just lost your son. Grief, we'll talk more about losing a child in a later movie, but yeah, it's a rough scene. And then she's just gets up and leaves, and after making a complete fool of herself in front of her family and disgusting them with her uninhibited action. And
and kind of obviously finding out what she's been running away from all this time, as you say, is kind of is heartbreaking. Just obviously everyone processes grief very differently, but especially for a mother to lose a child like that. It's kind of, she needed this outlet in her life, just to kind of forget about that for a while, and just lose herself in kind of another place almost.
And it shows the lack of sympathy that general society shows for people who act different. And obviously throughout most of the film, it's been, haha, look at these people acting like mentally handicapped people. But there it really reveals the tragedy of difference in society.
Because you do feel that it's just like it's kind of a gross out, kind of uncomfortable comedy, of the likes of, as you mentioned earlier on, like Borat or Curb Your Enthusiasm or something like that, but through making you feel, it's the audience, so making them feel kind of so uncomfortable, it does bring up those issues. And then when they do inject like these general moments of emotion, then it kind of almost blindsides you, and it's more powerful for that.
And I think I didn't connect with it as much because I don't connect with those kinds of comedies, as we know. Like, I think I've seen half of Borat, and then kind of like, I'll get round to watching the rest at some point, and that was about 10 years ago, and I just never have. That kind of thing doesn't work with me. So
that was 10 years ago, and it's been out for 20 years.
Well, after about 15-20 minutes of this, I go, I know what they're trying to do, but it's not working for me, and it doesn't work for everyone. And on this, I'm apparently on the same thing as Mark Kermode. When
he made a curmudgeon.
Well, yes, this film was incredibly divisive across the world, and has continued to be, even right from its get-go. So you go onto Wiki, where I'm getting this particular version of the anecdote from, although I have seen the anecdote in other places. It says, the idiot provoked a storm of publicity and debates, mainly around the fictional representation of disability. And again, it is on the line of, is this actually acceptable? I know we're poking fun at the people poking fun at it, but it is on that borderline of taste, I think. And it goes, film critic Mark Kermode, who is still kind of the number one voted film critic in the UK. His reaction was to shout, Il est merde, from the back of an auditorium during the official screening of the film at Cannes.
I think
He
was
promptly
ejected,
ejected from the venue. Yes, he was thrown out at Cannes for essentially going, what a load of crap.
I mean, this is one kind of debate that I kind of want to raise. I mean, obviously we'll get into it more, but looking at like the general kind of collated kind of average scores for these films, we're looking at the Idiots. So I'm going by Metascore here. The Idiots is on a 48, Antichrist 49, House of Jack built 42. It's a very kind of obviously divisive, but kind of obviously middling scores. I'm generally wondering, general critical. It's like the critical objections to these more on like moral grounds or a kind of matter of taste than it is like about the craft of it. Because I think put aside your your moral objections or if you feel something's distasteful or kind of damaging in some way, I think you can see he's got the skill level. He is a very skilled visual artist, and he can put these things together and. He's definitely got a vision. It's just whether you think, oh, is this message distasteful? Does he really mean it? Is depiction the same as endorsement? And just obviously, as Babe come back to time again, and I would say no, it's not. I think there's usually a point to his causing offence, but
I think there's also a thing with
is a debate to have.
Yeah, I think there's also a thing with this one that the fact that it's shot in this style means that in the nicest way, the film craft quality is going to be lower because you can't light it, the sound's not going to be as good, your ability to compose shots is slightly lesser, and all these things. It's a kind of faux documentary style, and then you've got something which is very on the borderline. You can see why people are immediately turned off, and if you're somebody that kind of part of your objective analysis of something is your subjective relationship to it, you are going to rate it lower because your enjoyment of it is going to reflect how good you think the film is. There are very few reviewers and critics out there that will essentially go, I didn't like the film, but I can't fault it, if that makes sense. Therefore, it's going to get this rating. So I think if you're somebody that was kind of watching it, and probably initially if you're watching it as well, and it's being screened at Cannes, a prestigious film festival, and you've got this faux documentary kind of low-budget art house thing about people going around pretending to be mentally handicapped, and, oh, shouldn't we laugh at this? People's objections are going to be kind of quite loud, and I think possibly the style of the Dogma 95 kind of filming style actually does affect that. I think once you can get past that, you can appreciate what he's trying to do. But you can also find it morally repugnant at the same time.
Yeah. I think there's also a difference between something like this and a movie like The Hangover, let's say, where you're doing things that are stereotypical and mockery just to make a joke and just to punch down, where you mentioned that this has a point, but on top of that, there's conscious discussion of, well, are you just poking fun at people? There's the sort of justification philosophically for doing it, which is that real? Is it BS? Is it a bunch of pretentious mess? It wants to interrogate that idea. It's not just, haha, we're making fun of the mentally handicapped. It's these people are making fun of or acting like the mentally handicapped. What are they doing and why?
Because I don't think we're necessarily meant to like these characters, and kind of their general ethos, really. Kind of to say, well, yeah, okay, they kind of have a point, but do they need to go about it this way, and are they just a bit up themselves?
Yeah.
Could they be using their time a bit better?
That plays into my ultimate interpretation of this movie, which is it's about filmmaking. It's about people going around acting, and then they don't bring it into their normal lives. It's a separate thing. It's something they sit around and talk about. They're pretentious about it, and then at a certain point, it does start to affect your real life. We see that with actors and actresses that struggle. The substance. There you go. We can bring that up again. They struggle with fame. They struggle with success or lack thereof, and finally people just chew you up and spit you out. Your family might reject you. I think there's a lot to that. And then why did they leave in the filmmaking stuff? Well, because it's a film about filmmaking. It's just not the Hollywood style film about filmmaking. So,
and I mean, on the Mark Kermode front, it's not just because of this filmmaking style that he didn't like the film. As anyone that has seen his review of Entourage on YouTube, which starts off with him trying to do a review and then just turns into about a 9-minute rant about how morally repugnant and repulsive he finds the film Entourage to be. That essentially we're supposed to like people for being rich, and isn't that funny? And that's an amazing joke. And he just tears into it. And it's one of the greatest 10 minutes ever. I would say that.
I mean, this movie has greater intellectual qualities to it than I already Entourage.
Yeah, I just remember when I think of Mark Kermode having a rant about something, I think of Entourage. That's it. But it's obviously Trier kind of pushing and just seeing what he can get away with. I think is a large thing. I mean, he wrote the script in 4 days, and I'm guessing it would have been a fairly loose script at that. And he just went, let's just see what we can do. And I mean, in the UK, Channel 4 aired it in 2005, exploring kind of banned and censored cinematic films. And they aired it kind of after midnight. They put warnings ahead of time and all these kinds of things. And they still got loads of complaints from Ofcom, who are the kind of TV kind of regulations governing body, going, channel is just giving all these absolutely awful things like that. Think of the children kind of thing. And they kind of went, the Ofcom added the caveat that while we do not consider the film was in breach of the code on this occasion, we must consider carefully the acceptability of any similar content on an individual basis. So even they're going, shoving this film after midnight with massive warnings in front of it in 2005. This is still on the borderline of whether this is acceptable. So they're like, we understand the complaints. It doesn't technically breach all these TV regulations, but it's on the line.
I'm going to stay on the tangent. I'm watching the show 16 and Pregnant right now, and they use the R slur on that show. It's documentary style following teenagers who are pregnant. They say the R slur. In 2009-10 on American TV, this was still being used. There are comedy skits where people act that. There's a Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode about, is Dee's boyfriend mentally handicapped?
I mean, in Tropic Thunder, that's got Robert Downey Jr. essentially in blackface, but that wasn't the controversial thing about that film. It was the frequent use of the R words.
Yeah, I mean, on the Always Sunny front, because I was kind of thinking the same thing. I think the Always Sunny thing does the thing as well that kind of, it's obvious that the show is making fun of the characters themselves rather than kind of the stuff they're bringing up. It's kind of not a show that's being racist. It's making fun of people who kind of almost don't realize that they're being kind of racially offensive and things like that. I personally think, and this may just be a personal thing because my old flatmate was obsessed with Always Sunny, so I watched it about 5 times solid within about a 3-year period. But I think it's very much kind of, what is your opinion on, is Trier laughing with or laughing at the characters? And I think that is still up in the air and open for interpretation sometimes, or at least it can seem like it's up for interpretation. And you have to dive in properly to properly understand where it's coming from, which is why on first viewing you can go, this is awful.
Are the idiots, when they're acting like idiots, are the idiots the characters themselves? Ooh, I don't know. I'll say watch this movie if you like, late 90s, early 2000s handheld.
I put this off for a long time. Obviously, I've been aware of it, since I, looked at Dogma, in my studies. But I was just put off by the premise. I mean, I made like a snap kind of moral judgment saying, well, actually, you shouldn't be doing that. That's what kind of premise is that? But you actually watch it, is interesting. And I think it's worth your time. And it is funny. You might not feel comfortable. You might not feel comfortable about a lot of the times you're laughing, but it is funny.
If you like cringe comedy, it's funny.
Yeah. This is obviously my problem. I'm not a cringe comedy person.
And it's a rare occasion. It's like, because Lars's films in general, they're not a laugh a minute, but this is probably the most outright enjoyable.
Well, let's go to
the shortest.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's go to his second funniest film. No. No, this is the film that I watched when I Googled controversial films in like 2011. Found this.
The Serbian film had only just come out and couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And irreversibly, you're like, we're gonna save that for something else.
Martyrs and Inside.
Yeah. I mean, this definitely does cross into that boundaries of like the extreme cinema, doesn't it? So Antichrist then from 2000, was it 2007 or 2009? I can't remember.
9.
Thank you. So this was written by von Trier while he was undergoing psychiatric treatment in hospital, and made while he was still struggling with crippling depression, resulting in him often directing his scenes remotely, basically from inside a van over headsets.
We should just say very quickly on him struggling with things that he was. I think it was announced on the 12th that he was in a centre for his Parkinson's. So we should just say, get well soon, Lars von Trier, or something along those lines.
I think he came public with that last year, and he was talking about like learning to live with it and looking at what treatment's available. But by the sounds of it, it seems like to have accelerated quite a bit since then. So,
I was going to say, it's like even if you're not a massive fan of his films, you do need somebody trying to kick some doors down and do something that offends people just to see what happens.
And I think if this is if the house that Jack built turns out to be his final feature, then it's a shame that we're not going to have more stuff like that. But the film, so Antichrist, it follows an unnamed married couple played by Charlotte Gasberg and Willem Dafoe, trying to overcome their grief at the tragic death of their young son. And to do this, they go to a secluded cabin in the woods in an area that they call Eden. See what he's doing there?
Yeah.
So the film opens with a toddler falling out of a window and only gets more harrowing from there. So, but that scene, I mean, what a toddler death! I mean, in this gorgeous extreme slow-mo, black and white and the snow falling and everything. It's a beautiful looking scene.
Look out for our next list at Second Cut, best toddler deaths on film.
Yes, along with Assault on Precinct 13.
And a spice between his parents having very graphic sex while that's going on, while he's climbing on a wardrobe and towards an open window.
With again, I'm guessing some pornographic actors brought in for one or two shots. As I started watching this, and then about 2 minutes in, went, I'm going to move exactly where I'm sitting to watch.
Did you have a window behind you?
No, just my door. It's like somebody walks in. It's like, I'm going to move.
I would like to think it was really Willem Dafoe. I don't care if it was Charlotte Gainsborough, but.
Apparently, that's a bit of trivia. Willem Dafoe was prepared to go full frontal for this, but Lars saw him kind of what he was packing and said, "No, that's too distracting. I'm going to get a double in."
Yeah, aka Dirk Diggler. That's Willem Dafoe's other name.
Basically, yeah. I did have to wonder about this. I mean, it's a time-honored tradition. So, has any couple ever gone to a cabin in the woods and have it end happily?
Probably before 1981.
If Kieran doesn't know, then nobody knows.
Yeah.
Not as far as I know.
Yeah.
They have to go to a cottage in the forest, I think, to have it end
Yeah.
slightly more happily.
Maybe there's a Hallmark movie or some other rom-com that's in a cabin in
Yeah.
the woods.
But essentially, so one of the first characters, he's a psychiatrist, and he's basically giving his wife treatment, trying to work through these issues. I mean, she's basically gone almost like catatonic at this stage. If she's not just silent, she's bawling her eyes out. Obviously, she's really seems to be struggling with it more than he is on the surface. But basically, when they get to the location, it gets a lot more kind of abstract and goes off the rails a little bit. I mean, probably, I suppose, reflecting the character's kind of psychological and emotional torments. I'd argue it's very good at portraying kind of insurmountable grief. I think it's probably up there with the best portrayals of that on film. And there's some quite striking kind of horror in nature imagery, in addition to all like the body horror stuff and the infamous by now genital mutilation scenes.
Yes.
But what he's getting at in terms of gender and religion and kind of the power dynamics folded into that, I found a bit more bewildering, and I'm not entirely sure I could decode that really.
Yes.
Maybe you need like a degree in theology, to get all the references. There's been quite a bit written about this, about all the biblical references in this and stuff like that. But yeah,
Let's also note von Trier was not raised religious. He was raised in a communist commune with hippie parents.
Yeah. And I think he said in interviews he's come and gone with kind of religion over the years. Sometimes he feels like he's quite spiritual, but other times he's recommits to his atheism. That has kind of changed. I think he's always had a fascination with religion, if he doesn't practice himself.
Yeah.
I
think in the Western world, at some point, you kind of have to grapple with the influence of Christianity on art, on all these things, and just on the way that the countries are structured from a moral point of view. Even if you don't take the doctrines kind of to heart, our view on kind of morality, slavery, rights, and that kind of thing, redemption, all these things are very much influenced by the heart of Christianity and those ideas anyway. So I think if you're in a kind of Western society, there is a Christianity thread in there, regardless of whether you actually believe in it or not. The kind of theological underpinnings are there.
I mean, this place to go to, it's in theory, it's like an idyllic kind of woodland location, but it's very much shown as like a threat to them almost. As like there's lots of like rotting animals and general kind of nature reclaiming kind of what we took from it, and stuff like that. And when they're at their darkest points, running off into the fog, back out into nature, and it's kind of almost again kind of reflects in kind of their kind of darkness of their souls, I suppose. I mean, some of the metaphors are pretty on the nose. I mean, so infamously, she cuts her clitoris with a pair of scissors, and she drops something heavy on Willem Dafoe's genitals as well. So equal opportunity, kind of genital mutilation in this. But she also kind of her most manic moment. She knocks unconscious and puts a weight through his leg, basically impales his leg through a bar attached to a weight at the end. And when he wakes up, he's literally going to drag himself out and kind of try and get free, because she's hidden the wrench that she tightened the thing onto his leg with. And I kind of saw it, I was like, oh, he's literally dragging his sins behind him. Look at that. It's like
it's a little bit mad.
Yeah. I mean, you could write thesis after thesis on something like this. I think there is so much to it, and I can't say I kind of get everything, but I think what it does well is really effective. I just don't really understand some choices it makes. Like, there's literally Willem Dafoe mansplaining misogyny to Charlotte Gainsbourg at one point, because she had like a thesis that she didn't complete, didn't she, about like misogyny through the ages. You know, it was like focus on witches and things like that.
And he's a psychiatrist, so
yeah. He's kind of say, he's kind of say, oh, this is why you did that, and had you forgotten that this is true as well as this? And yeah, it's just makes me feel kind of a little bit uncomfortable in that regard. I mean, they're so John Waters, who's famously, a purveyor of a certain amount of controversial cinema himself, but was a big Lars fan, and he described this as if Ingmar Bergman had committed suicide, gone to hell, and come back to Earth to direct an exploitation art film for drive-ins.
That's a great
it's
quote.
not far off, it must be said.
Yeah. It received a special anti-award from the ecumenical jury at Cannes the year it was in competition for. The jury, which typically awards a film that promotes spiritual humanist values, decided to award this as an anti-award for its seemingly misogynistic views. Interestingly, though, Charlotte Gainsbourg also won Best Actress that year at the same festivals, which I would say is thoroughly deserved, because God, she is put through the ringer in this. I mean, I know many of the actors who he's worked with over the years have had terrible things to say about him, and very few of them worked with more than once. She's worked with him 3 times, and they obviously share a creative vision and work well together, and she doesn't necessarily mind kind of acting out this trauma and like the kind of the physical, kind of the grueling physicality of it all. And she is very, very, very effective in the role. Willem Dafoe, I think, is just typical Willem Dafoe kind of sleazebag, basically. I think he's done that role quite a few times. I don't think it's much of a stretch for him, particularly. But
in a certain way, Willem Dafoe turns up on screen and you just see Willem Dafoe. And thankfully, he's just playing Willem Dafoe, which is great. I'm not complaining.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we've mentioned like some of the reception from some of his collaborators over the years. I mean, Bjork, obviously not going to go into exactly everything she said about him, but she compared him unfavorably to people like Woody Allen and Stanley Kubrick, who have obviously had various accusations against him over the years. But she said they at least provide the soul to their movies. And she says, in Lars von Trier's case, it's not so, and he knows it. He needs a female to provide his work soul, and he envies them and hates them for it, so he has to destroy them during the filming and hide the evidence. It seems pretty damning, but again,
It's interesting because, again, this is a film, as with all of his films, where some people, and it's pretty much like half the critics will give it sort of 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, and that kind of thing, and then the others will give it zeros, and it's kind of, it's not, most of his films don't have, there's not like kind of a 60-70% of the films are kind of mostly fairly positive, and then just a couple of outliers. No, it's across the board. Like, there's almost an equal split. I mean, Roger Ebert apparently gave it 3.5 out of 4. And it's quite interesting. He goes, Von Trier has always been a provocateur, is driven to confront and shake his audience more than any other serious filmmaker. He'll do it with sex, pain, boredom, theology, and bizarre stylistic experiments. And why not? We're at least convinced we're watching a film precisely as he intended it, and not after a watering down by a fearful studio executive. And admittedly, that's one of the things that you can always tell with Trier, is that they kind of just went, do your own thing. And the finished product, I mean, I've said this before, that the sign of, if you could call them an auteur, the sign of that is that they come out of it at the end and the film actually looks like it's been directed, not edited. And this definitely looks like it was directed rather than edited. So at least it has that going for him, regardless of what you think of the actual film itself.
It's also a higher level of technical polish than his earlier work.
I mean, so obviously the things within this, there's some horrifying stuff. There's some really disturbing, just harrowing kind of keep you awake for a week after seeing this kind of imagery and this. But it's also a gorgeous looking film. So just on like a purely aesthetic level, just the way he kind of mounts it and actually he captures those images, and it's you could just hang this on a very disturbing gallery wall.
Probably people have done.
Yeah, I mean, I've got three kind of quite different. Again, just to demonstrate how my device he is. Three kind of little kind of takes on it, all published around the same time. The Guardian, when this was, I think when this was released at Cannes, basically they got like a panel of critics together almost, and just to show the breadth of kind of opinion on it. So Zan Brooks, on the more popular, kind of on the more positive kind of end of things, he said, the finished product is so torrid and unrefined, frequently preposterous, and on the brink of outright meltdown. Von Trier constructs the drama as a funhouse of terrors, a warren of dark nooks and crannies, spring-loaded with trapdoors and rearing phantoms. Here is a film that explicitly confronts the director's intertwined fears of primal nature and female sexuality. So he's obviously values kind of what Trier's kind of going for in this. I'll definitely be more on that end of things. And then you get Joanna Bork, who she kind of talks about like the kind of the biblical kind of imagery and religious references. She does mention that the audience are made complicit in the sexual violence infused in the film, which is kind of an interesting take. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I think that is part of it almost. He is making us take this in and kind of feel part of it almost. But she says the Antichrist circles relentlessly around acts of transgression. The violence is defiantly excessive and beautiful. It is gendered, but more misanthropic than misogynistic.
I was going to say the making complicit in the violence is a very 70s film theorist point of view of things. It's like, I'm fairly sure I've studied this theory before. I'm fairly sure it came out in like Laura Mulvey, John Berger kind of 70s.
You can't ignore a slasher film because you're rooting for teenagers to be chopped up. And then the other end, you have Julie Bindel, who's as well as critic. She's a campaigner. And she says, watching this film was like having bad sex with someone you loathe, a hideous combination of sheer boredom and disgust. No doubt this monstrous creation will be inflicted on film students in years to come. Well, again, she's probably not wrong about that. I'm sure there's lots of film processes.
I do want to ask what good sex with somebody you loathe is, but that's a completely different topic entirely. I'm going to critique your exact wording of your critique, but... That's all that went through my head when you read that out. I'm like, exactly. I can see what you're going for, but it doesn't quite work.
Yeah. So I think it's a fascinating film, and Shark Girl spoke of force of nature, and I think it does kind of weigh in on those kind of the unimaginable grief of that kind of experience real well, kind of how it evokes that. One question I did have, I don't know whether you agree with my interpretation of this. So do you think it does imply that she saw the child falling out the window, doesn't it? There's another flashback later on. I think you do see her kind of look over while they're in the throes of passion, basically. And I think that's it's almost like that's like the final kind of guilty secret that she's not prepared to acknowledge yet, that she watched her child die, and it's like, took her own self-gratification like above like saving a child.
I was going to say we should watch it again. I mean, the whole opening sequence was shot at 1,000 frames a second. So
you don't see it the first time through, but then you see there's a brief flashback later on where you just see her kind of look over. You don't really see it explicitly, but I think it's meant to imply that she kind of looks up from a moment of their passions, like I saw it and then didn't react straight away. It's just like, what we're doing in this moment is more important. My base desires are more important.
Are you saying that Von Trier cheated there, like Argento doesn't for Deep Red? You have to go back and watch it and see if he's done it twice.
I mean, it's not the same footage. So it's not cheap. It's just.
Even if that is or isn't there, it could still just be a guilt thing where she knows what she was doing. I don't remember the flashback specifically, but it's been a couple. I'm going off memory of a couple years. So
to be honest, you could even interpret it as that she's essentially convinced herself that she saw it, even if she didn't.
Yeah. Again, it could be a trick of the mind, couldn't it? Yeah.
A false memory, whatever.
I suppose if you're kind of interrogating you, kind of you blame yourself, thinking, is there anything I could have done differently? And then maybe she does remember things differently to how they happened. Yeah.
I was going to say, even if you don't like the film, you're definitely going to damn remember it.
He was originally going to reveal at the finale of this film that the devil, that Satan created the world and not God. But I think his co-writer convinced him, let's not do that. It's like, that might be a step too far.
Yeah, it'd take him another 10 years to go to hell.
There are sort of hints in there, aren't there? Obviously, with the stuff for a thesis, there's lots of like satanic imagery and
or just that it being a dark nature in general, like that could just imply that this is the Dark Eden and they're Adam and Eve, all that jazz.
Yeah. So fascinating film, not an easy watch. Check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure. Is it an easier watch than The House That Jack Built or not?
It's less funny.
Yeah. I mean, before we move on to Far Film, shall we just quickly mention? Obviously, one of his more infamous things was being banned from Cannes for a very poor taste Nazi joke. Do you know the actual quote? Do you know what he actually said? I mean, shall I bring that up? I mean, basically, it comes down to for a long time he didn't know his fat. The guy who grew up as knowing as his dad wasn't his real dad essentially, and his mum told him this on his deathbed. So he thought he was Jewish. Turns out his dad was German. And he was sort of struggling with that bit of an identity crisis for a while. For years thinking he was ethnically Jewish. They were kind of oppressed, people, and then turns out, maybe my ancestors were the people who were doing the oppressing. And he basically, so he says, I thought I was a Jew for a long time, and I was very happy being a Jew. Then it turned out I was not a Jew. I found out that I was really a Nazi, which gave me some pleasure. So again, poor joke, kind of equating a German being Nazi and everything like that. And if he'd left it at that, it was probably a poor taste joke, misjudged, we'll move on. But he doubles down, and if you watch footage like Kirsten Dunst, because it was during the Melancholia promotion cycle, she's literally shriveling up before her eyes, just wanted the world to swallow her. And I think she puts her hand on it.
I was in Spider-Man, for crying out loud.
She puts her hand on it on his trophy. It's almost like saying, just shut up, Lars, shut up, Lars, shut up, Lars. And then he doubled down. He said, "What can I say? I understand Hitler." And obviously, he's been satirical. He's just pushed people's buttons. That
was a Roman quote, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you can imagine Kristen Dunst, like, was it Macron with the Trump footage that came out the last few days? Kind of, that's the similar kind of response from Kristen Dunst, I believe.
Yeah. I think he tried to kind of dial it back a bit, but then I think he just got annoyed. Just says, I'll do one final kind of hit here. So he said, "I'm not for the Second World War. I'm not against Jews. I'm very much for Jews. Well, not too much because Israel is a pain in the ass." I mean, we'll sort of get too politically, but okay. Maybe
if I'm Lars von Trier and I don't want to tell him how to express his struggle, but I would just go up and say, "Guys, I'm struggling with my finding out who my real father is."
But apparently he did spend like next 6 months basically promotion, basically apologizing in every interview he could give for this. And I think it probably kind of hit him quite hard because this was like Cannes was like a second home for him, wasn't he? He saw a lot of success there over the years and a lot of critical and audience love there, and it kind of put a bit of a an ugly stain on all that, really. So it's like burnt his house down unnecessarily. Speaking of houses,
Boom. Segue. And speaking of burning as well, somebody decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a serial killer movie, but we're also going to try and put in Dante's Inferno. Because obviously this is the done thing that hasn't been done yet. And therefore we need to do it.
And we definitely need 2.5 hours to do this.
Yeah, and we're going to kill Uma Thurman very early on. And there's going to be a load of stuff which nobody really knows what's going on. And we're also going to keep in the long-honored tradition of starting our movies with essentially a scribbling of the title with Lars von Trier Presents, and then each chapter being similarly done, because Lars von Trier really likes putting his films into chapters, because he feels he is an auteur. He is also an author, and as a result that we have to put everything into chapters, because we need to be true to life, and life definitely has chapters. This is a thing which is done.
I think by this point we're off the true to life. We've gone fully into formalistic cinema.
Yeah. Or as it is described on Wikipedia, this a 2018 psychological horror art film. It's a bloody horror movie. Shut up. We know my thoughts on psychological thrillers and psychological horrors. It's bullcrap. Anyway, it is talking about somebody called Jack, strangely enough, or Mr. Sophistication, as he recounts to Virgil, who he calls Verge, essentially a load of incidents on how he goes and murders people and becomes a serial killer for essentially no other reason than he wants to kill people, as far as I can remember, and it's kind of fun. And he feels like it's art, he's creating art, and creating it like all the paintings and stuff like that. But he's also got OCD. Which is fine. It's just like, this is really not good.
Which results in easily the best scene in the film, which is his obsession with making his crime scene clean. Every time he leaves, and he puts himself in more danger by remembering something where there might be small bullets in this apartment.
And so he has to go back in, and then other people are walking in. It's like, damn, why am I in this situation to begin with? And trying to get into people's houses.
Which reminded me a lot of the scene in Frenzy in the potato truck. The killer, trying to get his his typing back. And just everything he does just makes it worse for him.
Yeah, and it is an interesting thing because he is theoretically our protagonist, because he's the main character at the very least. So that even if it's kind of, you want him to be caught, at the same time you don't want him to be caught, because the film is automatically using exactly the same conventions, except the fact he goes around killing people.
Yeah, there's a time on debate about, like, is it, again, going back to is depiction endorsement, is making you spend so much time with this killer giving you too much sympathy for him, and is that a problem on a moral level?
Yeah, I think it's actually interesting. I mean, much of the film, it must be said, is essentially him going around in various vignettes of killing various people. This is, for them, it sounds like a very simplistic thing, and I should go more in depth, but he sets
it out as 5 incidents, doesn't he? It's like, it's like from his greatest hits, 5 that he particularly remembers.
Although he has killed more in passing, yes.
And it does take in more than 5 incidents as well. It kind of breaks his own rule there, doesn't he? He goes off on tangents.
And he he does all that, and then right at the end, he's kind of trying to kill lots of people in one go and stacking them all up as part of kind of his house and his bodies and things to see what happens. And I mean, I'm going to say what happens. Essentially, ends up the police come in, and they fairly sure they shoot him. And Virgil comes and takes him down to hell, because this is the Dante's Inferno part, that's in it for like 20 minutes right at the end, which is just like, where did this come from all of a sudden? Like, it's just weird. And yes, we've had him talking to Virgil the entire time, but then he suddenly decides to appear and, let's go down to hell. And he shows him the Elysian fields from Greek mythology. And then he goes down like right to the bottom layer. And there's this weird comment. He goes, what's on the other side? It's like, well, actually, I'm meant to take you up from here now. You're not actually meant to be this far down, surprisingly. Not my choice. and it's meant to take him back up, but and essentially there's like there used to be a bridge over a load of lava to the other side, which is leading up into light, so it's almost like kind of the way out again, I guess, through Purgatorio and into Paradiso. Paradise is the second and third parts of the Divine Comedy. But he goes, I can technically climb around the outside. And Virgil goes, many have tried, nobody's actually done it. And Jack decides to do it, and he then slips and falls into lava and hell, and then he gets his divine punishment. And apparently all this, like, there's no other way to say it, but apparently that was actually inspired by Hitchcock. He said that somehow I felt a little Hitchcock-like at the end of the film with Jack hanging there. Never let the bad guy hang on his nails, as the audience won't care. Psychopaths act out of an irrational certainty that they won't be caught. That's why the ending's like it is. It would be typical for me to let him live. But then I thought about good old Hitchcock and decided this calls for a classical ending, where the bad guy gets...
and there is a certain amount of Hitchcockian stuff to this, really. I mean, Hitchcock obviously a few times infamously put us in the kind of the point of view of the killer, didn't he? And and almost got to root for them to get away with it.
And I mean, the talking about the second or the third incident where he kind of goes back into the house because he thinks he hasn't scrubbed the blood properly. That is proper Hitchcock suspense there. The whole thing is filmed. That could be lifted and out of like one of an early or a kind of 40s or 50s Hitchcock film and made into its own thing, or even like an Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode right then and there. It's very structured exactly the same way as, I guess, kind of you write that kind of thing, and any director kind of worth the salt, even if you kind of don't care about Hitchcock, you immediately go back and go, what would he have done? Because he was damn good at doing that kind of thing. Something like Dial M for Murder or Rope or something along those lines. It's exactly the same setup.
I'll admit I was dreading seeing this, I saw how long it was, and then kind of saw the reception of it, because it was divisive even by his standards. I think people really hated it. But of the three, this is my favourite.
Yeah,
and it's not even close. I think this was a lot of fun. Maybe fun's the wrong word, but I really appreciate it. It was a good watch. It was,
and I think it's actually, even though it's kind of 2.5 hours long, it's broken up very nicely. It's a series of short films that links together. It's vignettes rather than like one long drag. So it has kind of those rises and falls. So you can kind of build at the speed and come back down again, and you can have kind of several bouts of emotional payoff rather than just waiting for 3 hours for anything to happen.
Also, we have to say welcome back to Matt Dillon. It's been a while since we've seen him on this podcast. It was all the way back in Crash was the last time we discussed one of his performances.
I was going to say, it's like, what else has he been in that we've discussed? I'm now going to have to go through, aren't I, and see what else. Probably something very recently that we can't remember.
Of the films we have done podcasts, obviously he's in Crash and here, but I don't think
that we mentioned earlier about not caring about. I was in Herbie Fully Loaded as well. It's been ages.
I probably brought up Rumblefish.
But he's a bit. I think he's a bit of a revelation. This, I think, again, he's almost. It's kind of almost like you probably see someone like McConaughey in this kind of role, but although maybe they'd be too good looking for it. I don't know. Because I think you have to believe that people will be taken in by him and that he's kind of charismatic enough, even if he's very weird. People think, oh, he's. I wouldn't mind speaking to him for a while. He takes you in for a bit, and then.
Well, he's also aside from being quiet and weird, he's a bit bumbly too. Like with the lady, the first one, he's really awkward. The second one, he's like trying to convince her to let him in, and he's going through all these different stories instead of just moving on.
I mean, there's a phase where obviously he's managed to switch off all of his tics and neuroses for long enough to actually get into a relationship with a woman and her sons. So,
But yeah, I prefer this out of all of them, and it's not just because of the violence. I think it's the way it's done, it's the setup. There is the fact that kind of you do actually feel like he's going to get his just desserts right at the end. The fact that he's kind of narrating this implies that he's talking to a confessor, which implies the fact he's been caught, that somebody's found him out. So I think that right from the get-go, you have a sense that he's
Yeah.
kind of, even if he's talking to himself, kind of thing, that somebody else knows.
Yeah,
So he's going to be able to...
because before the other speakers identified, I was thinking it's either his conscience or it's like like a prison psychiatrist or something.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
Or
very
a
much
confessional
fights
with a
against...
priest.
or a police detective kind of thing. That there is definitely a confessional thing that argues, and the point of that is also to give the other point of view. That you know the audience's point of view, that this is morally reprehensible. This isn't art. This is just that kind of stuff. You're not going to be remembered. All those kinds of things that the viewer's thinking of, and I think that is very cleverly done to kind of reassure the audience. Don't worry, we're not on Jack's side. There is, and this is all the way through the film. The film constantly reminds us, don't worry, the film is aware that this is a morally reprehensible individual that goes around murdering people. We are giving an answer back to it. You're not meant to just completely sympathize with him. And that's, I think without that, this might have just fallen into complete kind of morally reprehensible, if artistically pleasing. Because even if you think it's absolute disgrace, it's just exploitation for the sake of exploitation, it looks glorious, and it's very well shot and very well done and very well edited, and the craft is there. And thankfully for the kind of bits of Virgil going all the way through, you do essentially get the feeling that it's like the film is going, okay, we know. You know it's going to get complaints. We're not on Jack's side. Here's my proof all the way through, and the reassurance.
Yeah. Also, Bruno Ganz's second appearance on this podcast this year, after being a Jonathan Harker for Herzog.
Oh yes. The amount of people that are in this is ridiculous. And Ed Spielers as well, like Aragon. Like you've finally actually gone into some decent things from all those years ago. And one of them was Howl. He was Aragon.
Oh.
No, I mean, in this film.
In this, he was Ed, Police Officer 2.
Okay.
So it was only a small role. It wasn't like a main character, but I think he's... Is he the one that comes to the door when he's gone back in?
Is he the one, or is he? Oh, actually, yeah. I think he's in that scene where he's cleaning up his crime scene.
The Hitchcock scene,
yeah. He's not the one in the alley where his victim runs out screaming, saying he's going to kill me, and he just says, "Yeah, you've had enough to drink now. Go back inside." I don't think he's that one.
I don't think he's that one now. But yeah. This is amazingly one of his better films, although I still think Howl is an absolute masterpiece. Anyway, I don't know what else to say about House that Jack Built. I can see why it's incredibly divisive. I think it's a very well made, very accomplished film. But I can also see why it's incredibly divisive, because there's an awful lot of kind of straight up violence, but it's weird that kind of
and it's in quite nasty violence, isn't it?
But it's weird. There's some moments where you do go, okay, there's nasty violence in this, but why was Hannibal praised for this kind of stuff? And this got absolutely attacked.
I did kind of laugh when you see what he's done to the little boy, basically it's like this Joker grinning kind of mannequin, basically. What's it calls him? He's called grumpy or something, or is he ironic, or is he called him happy? I can't remember now.
I think so, yeah. And then it's just like the bit near the end where he gets caught, where he's kind of lined people up together like that. And I'm going, that is a straight Hannibal style kind of coming across a murder scene. It's like, why was that praised? I mean, justifiably so, that series was praised, but this is just like, oh, it's utterly like repulsive. I'm like, double standards here, please.
I mean, I suppose I can find, obviously, there's horrible violence towards his victims, and sexual violence as well. I suppose the scene of probably, two scenes that get the most kind of criticism. One was the flashback to his childhood with the duckling, because people presumed that was with a real duckling, but it wasn't. It was just very good CGI.
Following Dogma 95
no, don't
rules.
torture a duckling. Sorry.
Although apparently Peter actually praised that scene because said it accurately depicts how a lot of serial killers start off harming animals. So, But no, the other scene is obviously where he shoots 2 children with a rifle, and then the mother, he takes them out in theory to practice using guns to hunt, and then they become the hunted. So which is a very disturbing scene, but effective.
Yep.
And I'm just saying that Jallo reference was amazing.
All right. Well, that's 3. I mean, we went across his whole career, the beginning, middle, and end. I mean, other than his very first 80s films. But we got a good span. So go, check out his stuff if you want to, or don't if you don't want to. But that is it for our Lars von Trier discussion. But we'll be back next week with something else fun. Until then, guys, where could people find you?
You can find me at SSB Thinks Film and at the Substack for the Second Cut Pod. Substack, that is what we are, isn't it? Yeah,
I believe so.
Yes.
I don't know. Identity crisis.
All I've written this week for that was just a quick news roundup about the Amazon buying Bond, which we'll probably be mentioning again next week.
Strange that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm K Judgmental the various places. I will have stuff going on the Substack within the next few days. I don't think I put anything up in the last week or so, but we will get going with it. But there are 3 of us, and we do have lives. So
we're going pretty good. We're getting stuff posted, and by us, I mean you guys.
Yeah, when Jacob actually comes in and joins in, we'll actually get stuff motoring.
Yes. Although I would say it's motoring. Just because it's not all film reviews, that's fine. We're putting things out there. Check us out, Second Cut Pod. You can follow me at Jacob Film Guy at whatever. I'm not going to be on Twitter or anything like that, but still follow me there. Why not? And we don't have stuff to sell anymore. Go check out our old work at thefilmmagazine.com. That's up until 2030. You're losing months until you can go see that. We are almost done with February. This year's going so fast. I don't know. You can still probably donate money to that PayPal. Joe is a good guy and will disperse it fairly. And that is it. Is that it?
We will get merch eventually somehow. When we take over the world.
Yes.
We will get Second Cut merch.
Exactly. So go check out that stuff that we'll have in the future. Until then, thank you for listening and goodbye.
Adios.
Goodbye.